This here is an AMT Automag 3. It was made by Arcadia Machine and Tooling. This one I estimate to have been made sometime in the 90s, around 93 or 4, judging by the serial number. AMT Tooling went out of business. They are no longer a thing. They were purchased by a third-party company who then sold it to High Standard, who currently owns it, and has unfortunately not made any more of these. So this is considered an antique collectible firearm. So because of that, information on this thing is pretty scarce. I have been unable to find a whole lot myself, especially when it comes to a complete disassembly and when it comes to reassembly especially. There's not a lot of advice. The best chance that you have to find information on this is the Automag forums, which has a whole collective of information. If you own one of these, I would suggest looking through there. There's a lot to learn. So I figured I would make a video showing a full disassembly and going over a little bit of the functions of this gun that I've learned, a little bit of my experience. This is my first gun. I do not own anything else besides this, so this is my piece. So first of all, I'm going to address there's no markings. The previous owner of this, I bought this used, appears to have polished off all of the markings, including those on the frame, and left only the serial number. So that is fantastic. He also has drilled a few holes for a sight on the top, and as far as I can tell, left this gun cocked in storage, resulting in damage to the hammer strut and leading to light primer strikes, which has since been fixed. I am fortunate to have a friend who is able to make me an AR500 hammer strut. So if you're trying to look for hammer struts, there is a company. They are called InterarmsTX. I would not recommend buying anything Automag related for them, unless it is for a Automag 2. If you would buy a part that is labeled Automag 3, I guarantee you will receive a Automag 2 part. I have gone through this. Other people have gone through this. And if you tell the company they sent you the wrong part, they blame you and tell you you're the first person to complain. Which is not true, because I've seen many other people complain and say the exact same thing. So, caution, don't buy Automag parts from them. So, first step for disassembly, you're going to want to take out your slide lock. You're going to push it up to that notch, and on the other side, you're going to push your finger and push that lever out. You can grip up at the top, pull that back, slide back a little, pull that guy out, let it forward, and disengage your safety. And as you pull it out, make sure to hold on to your hammer, because that may happen. And fortunately for me, I have an AR500 strut, so I don't have to worry about it bending. But if you don't, that may happen, and that may lead to light primer strikes, which will be disappointing. And as I said, there is almost no way to get a replacement online. So we're going to put that aside, and we're going to focus on the slide. So if you do not have a dedicated tool to disassemble this, I recommend using a wrench. A 3/4 wrench will do the job just fine. I also want to express this is cleared. There is nothing loaded into this. It is completely empty. Magazines are removed and do not contain anything. If you do not have an Automag instruction manual, I would recommend either attempting to pick up a copy, print one out yourself, or simply locate it online. You can also see here all of the parts that are included in the gun. I would not try to contact these numbers. These do not exist anymore. You will not be able to find replacement parts. But it's a good guide for identifying what you're looking at. So first step, we have to take off the front cap. That is what retains the entire barrel assembly inside of the gun. So if you do not have a disassembly tool, I would recommend taking a piece of paper towel or a microfiber or some other sort of cloth. If you have a gun cleaning kit, there will definitely be some included. You're going to want to use the wrench and try to depress the recoil spring and get it locked around that end cap. You can then twist it and unlock it. Just be careful to hold on to it. There is nothing holding this in right now besides friction and my fingers. If I were to let this go, which has happened to me unfortunately, it will shoot out the end, and you will have to go looking for those parts. So you're going to want to carefully allow this to pop out. As you can see, that's under spring tension. You're going to pop out your end cap. You're going to pop out your recoil spring sleeve. You're going to take out your recoil spring. And down below, you're also going to want to be careful. The operation rod has a slight buffer pin in it. You're going to want to slip that out the bottom and make sure you have that pin. You do not want to lose that. And then your barrel will just slide out the end. There we go. So that is a field strip. You can see the oil likes to gather right in the breech there. So that's everything from the internals. There is the firing pin left and the two sights. As far as I'm aware, you cannot remove the front sight. I may be wrong. If I am, I would love to know. The rear sight can be removed via this little roll pin here. And as far as the extractor and the firing pin go, I've been told that it is not recommended to take this apart unless you know exactly what you are doing. I do not. As far as I can tell, you will remove this via this pin located right there, and then you will be able to access the firing pin from the inside there, beneath that bar. Again, it is supposedly not recommended to do this unless you know exactly what you're doing and how to do it. You will also see the safety, which is very basic on this gun. All it does is block that firing pin. There is no other safety present on this gun. You pull that trigger, that hammer goes forward. So to do full safe on this gun, leave your hammer up, leave your safety on. You will have no chance of it going off. So with the slide stripped down, we're going to set this aside. And we're going to work on the frame. So first thing with the frame, you're going to want to take your grips off. This is not the best screwdriver to use for this. There we go. You're also going to want to keep this piece around. This is what retains this guy. Without this piece, this will just be limp and swiveling around in your gun, and you may not have it disengaged when you wanted to. This piece keeps tension on that pin and keeps it sliding to where it needs to be. So you're going to want to keep this with your grip. That slides right in there. If you're wondering where the wood grips came from, as far as I can tell, they are aftermarket. You can find them online. I believe they're still being made. I do have the original grips that came with this gun, but I like the look of the wood better, especially with the polished slide. So once you have the grips off, you're going to see very quickly this is a very simple gun. There's very little to this. This trigger too is incredibly light. I can toggle that with my pinky with no pressure whatsoever. So this is a very nice trigger. Very crisp. You have 2 millimeters of travel before it disengages. Maybe 1.5. It's a 2-pound trigger on this. So, remarkable. But all this is your trigger, your sear bar, your sear spring, or your sear bar spring, hammer, hammer strut, hammer spring, and then you can see this little notch here. That's your sear inside with your sear spring. So, what you're going to do is you're going to take this off and slide that out the bottom, and it's going to be pinched in there a little. You're going to want to swivel it around, pop it out. Your sear bar will then be loose. You do not have to disassemble this, but if you choose to, you can. You just take it off with an Allen key. Your trigger is held on into here by this pin, which you can already see it falling out. That is something you want to be careful of. All of these pins you like to fall out. All of them. So be careful if you're trying not to do a complete disassembly. What you're going to want to do to get the rest of this off is you're going to want to gently push this pin out. A screwdriver is not the proper tool to be using, so I do not recommend what I am doing. But if I'm being honest, this gun is already kind of fucked. There we go. Back that out gently. You're going to then take your spring out. So, there's your hammer. There's your hammer strut. This one is custom made out of AR-500. There's no bend in that. Well, there's ever so slightly, but I believe that was from manufacturing. You have your spring, which, as you can tell, mine is quite bent. I believe that is from this gun being stored in a cocked position. I don't recommend doing that at all. That's how you lead to this. You have your pin, which is what holds your hammer strut inside of the hammer. And on the inside, you have your ejector, and you have that pin trying to fall out. That is definitely one you want to keep in. You can tape the sides of this to keep them in. That's a pain in the ass. Your ejector here is held in with a ball bearing attached to a spring inside of there. That is retained in. That can be easily removed. You pop it out. You see that ball bearing right there? It's a bit of a pain to get back in. There is a hole for it on the other side, so you can get to it. And now all we have left is the sear and the sear spring. You can see right down in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to gently tap that guy out and remove this pin. And once you do, everything will fall out of the gun. This is the hardest thing to do. You have to have small fingers for this. There's your sear, and where it holds in against the trigger, and your sear spring. This is where the trouble is. Now, you're going to need a pair of these to get it back in. The way that you do this You have to stick it up through the bottom here. You have to get it back into position and line it up with that pinhole. See it in there? Gonna line it up. Find the right pin. And stick it through just enough to get it protruding and get that sear held in. Next, you're going to want to grab your needle nose. Besides the firing pin, I have no idea what that entails, but I'm lucky that I don't have to replace that yet. You want to get it down there. Stick it in, get it in there, and if it's in the right place, it should be up against that back wall there. Now, you're going to want to put this back in. And the way you're going to need to do that is to depress this ball bearing and stick it in there and pull the screwdriver out while pressing down on the extractor or the ejector. There. Then you're going to want to line up that pinhole. Once again, put your pin in just enough that it's catching that piece. There. Then you're going to want to reassemble your hammer. So you're going to put your strut in and push that pin in. The rough part goes up. You're going to drop your spring in. If your spring has damage like this, I would recommend putting the bent side downwards and the straight side up. That'll help prevent damage. I will guarantee you, if you have a bent spring in that fashion, it will instantly bend if you put that bent side up. And it will ruin your hammer strut. What you're going to do is put it at the top like this. You're going to want to push down just enough that you can get that pin through. Like that. Now that we've done that, we need to do it the right way. And once again, this is why this is the hardest part of this. It's because you need to get that spring for that sear up on top of this ridge. This one right here. So you have to juggle quite a few things to do this. If you have some sort of holder for your gun, I definitely recommend using that to keep this thing upright. It is very difficult to get this spring in. You have to hold it up, and right there, slip it on top. Push it into your position, push it down, and push that pin through. And if we can get some light on this, you can see that pin in there for that spring sitting on top. Right there. And you should be able to use that sear and release that hammer. So after that, that's the hard part. If you disassemble this for any reason, you need to make sure that spring is on top. That is a must. This gun will not work properly if it doesn't. If you remove the hammer, the sear strut, the sear bar, you're going to put that screw back in. You're going to put this back on. Going to make sure it's sitting right there. Put that notch on the sear. I recommend putting that loop through first, moving it around to that hole, and popping it in. Right there. I also recommend being gentle with the hammer. You should have full travel though, like that. Once again, I have a AR500 hardened steel hammer strut, so I would not recommend dry firing this with the slide off at all. Next thing I recommend is putting this side for the grips back on, so you don't have any of those pins fall out on you. You do either side, it doesn't matter, but those pins are the biggest pain that you will have to experience with this. That spring. So we screwed in halfway. Try to line up the top. That did not screw in at all. There we go. Line it up at the top. When trying to get these grips back on, it's kind of a guessing game. You gotta find that screw hole. Tighten that up nice and good. Flip it around. Get our other grip on there. Trying to find that hole. There it is. Get that top one in. There we go. You also see your sear bar sticking up there. That is a form of safety. When that is depressed and the slide is back, you will not be able to actuate that hammer when that is down. So, next we're going to move back to the slide. First thing, I'm going to slip that barrel back in. You're going to get it set in place there. You're going to then put your operating rod back in and your buffer pin. You're going to then drop your spring over it. Hold it up right here. Put your guide on it. And then you're going to put your cap on the end. Slip that over the barrel and put it in at the same angle that you took it out. and try to fit it in. If it's at the right angle, it should just slide all the way down onto there. Like that. Once again, you want to hold that tight and make sure that doesn't fly off on you. And then grab your wrench or your dedicated tool. And you're going to want to twist it back on. There we go. So that's back together. You know, all you're going to need to do, line it up with that guide rail, push it back. Sometimes you may have an issue with that sear, or that sear bar getting in the way. You may just have to push that against the body. Then you're going to stick your pin in. Your takedown lever just enough. Pull that slide back. And get that cutout lined up there. And you're going to have to press the pin in the back of that and push it all the way in. There you go. So, that's an Automag 3. It is a very nice gun, but these things are quite finicky. If you're going to own one and you're going to shoot it, you got to make sure you're cleaning them. You got to make sure you know the right way to handle it. And you got to make sure you know the history of this thing. Because you will not get parts for this. You will not find a lot of information online about it, especially its physical functions. Blueprints, good luck getting them. I can't even get a response from High Standard. And InterArms USA, I would not touch them for a 10-foot pole for this gun. Don't trust their parts. I may show images of the parts they sent me. The strut was an Automag 2 strut. It was shorter, it was thinner, it was very poorly made, actually. It had a lot of rough edges. It had a very clear point on it where they cut it off of a main set. It was not a good quality part. I wouldn't buy one. Even for an Automag 2, I would make sure to touch it up before I put it in. But it's not an Automag 3 part. They will tell you it's compatible. It is not. As far as I can tell, the only parts compatible between any of them are with the 3, 4, and 5. The Automag 2 is in 22 Magnum. It's not close to this. Don't put any Automag 2 parts in this gun. Use only Automag 3 or compatible parts. If they say a 2 is compatible, it's not. When I bought a replacement spring for the hammer, it was also an Automag 2 spring. It was smaller in diameter, it was weaker, and it was also a 1/10 of an inch shorter. It was 1 inch long. This one should be around 1 and 15/100ths of an inch. So do not put an Automag 2 spring in this. And once again, they will tell you it is compatible. It is not. I put in both the hammer strut and spring they sent me. This hammer was so weak, it would bounce off the firing pin and wobble back and forth at the back. That would never have shot. If I tried to take this to the range with that, it would have never even touched the primer. They're not good parts. That company will lie to you. They will tell you it's a good part, it works, your gun must be wrong. You're the first customer to complain. You are not the first customer to complain. Luckily, they did give me a refund. But that is a very frustrating experience I had to go through with them. And I have nothing to show for it, because I have no parts for this gun. I had to have a friend make me one. As for that spring, I have to bite the bullet, because custom springs you cannot get either. So, if you own one of these, expect to have to put some work into it. An Automag 2 you can find parts for, I'm sure, just fine. But an Automag 3, 4, or 5, it is not a range toy. It's not a gun for you to be using and just beat on it and expect it to work just fine. It is an antique, and you will have to put work into it. So, as fun as this gun is, this is a very fun gun. This has been a very good experience for me. Well, it hasn't. It's been a terrible experience, but it's been valuable to me to learn how to use this thing and repair it. And the next step that I will have to take is to figure out how to get this polished in a way that's not scratched to high hell by the previous owner. A very terrible polishing and not even evenly done. And he also grounded off the trigger and really did some damage to that. But it works. So, this is not every person's gun. This is not a gun for everybody. This is a gun for people that want to collect them or are willing to put in the work for a really unique piece. So, if you have one, I salute you. If you don't, and you want one, you gotta be aware of how it's gonna go before you pick one up. Because these are some work to get into. And once again, the Automag forums have a lot of good information on these. A lot of helpful information. There's a lot of good people there. I've even seen some Automag engineers in there. So if you need help with dimensions, getting, in contact with people, I'm sure there's a guy on there that makes replacement parts for this. You can look into that, but generally, you're on your own with it. So, good luck, have a good day, and hopefully this helps somebody.